So you would have a swimming pool like this that had the exact same regulations as the local water park or five-star hotel. Russell Flick, Director of Property Management at Qualitas Property Partners. But I'm not just a property manager, I've been an advocate for regulatory reform for the last 18 years in Cyprus, including publishing my book, Ultimate Committee Handbook, which is a resource for property owners and committees in Cyprus, and also doing online and public seminars, and generally creating a public resource for information for property owners in Cyprus. On this particular issue, to give you a little bit of background, in 2018, the municipality started enforcing an outdated swimming pool regulation. And what this resulted in is the closure of over 150 swimming pools and criminal prosecution of property owners and committees from those buildings. Their crime was purely for buying a property and operating a swimming pool that wasn't designed to the outdated swimming pool laws. I raised the alarm over this issue and organised an online petition which gathered the 8,000 signatures necessary to trigger governmental reform. But while this reform was ongoing, I made sure that this situation wasn't forgotten by making sure it kept coming up in online and national press. And I'm happy to say that as of today, this has been a success as the new law has finally come into effect in Cyprus. The main issue with the old law is there was just two classifications of swimming pool. So you had a private pool, which was a pool that basically belonged to a single property like a villa, and every other swimming pool in Cyprus was classified as public. But the most important thing is they all had the same set of requirements to follow. So you would have a swimming pool like this that had the exact same regulations as the local water park or five-star hotel, which was completely unreasonable. You can't have residential pools shared by a few apartments needing full-time lifeguards, €10,000 dosing equipment, and strict and rigorous testing regimes, which are perfectly reasonable for a water park, but not reasonable for a swimming pool like this. Now, what that actually meant is that people just didn't follow the regulations at all, because if you can't get the license, they didn't want to become on the radar to the municipalities and the authorities, so they just kind of kept quiet. And in fairness, so did the government. They turned a blind eye to the whole situation until they started, for some reason, suddenly actively enforcing this outdated regulation. This caused utter chaos because every single property in Cyprus heard about this. They didn't know, they were worried about these convictions. And the worst thing, even when they tried to comply with the legislation by hiring that full-time lifeguard and putting this equipment in, they still found that they couldn't get that license because of some bizarre building requirement that the toilets were too far away from the swimming pool. The important thing is that was signed off when the property was built, yet now all of a sudden was a problem and meant that they couldn't get their pool license, couldn't have it open, and if they did, face criminal prosecution and even prison. So in practical terms, the new legislation actually makes the requirements proportional. Now, it doesn't remove the requirements for maintaining a pool safely. It doesn't remove all the obligations to make sure that the pool is crystal clear and the pumping equipment is running properly and the chemicals are balanced correctly. But it does make those requirements proportional to the type of swimming pool. So this pool would now have different requirements to that hotel pool down the road. And that means they're actually achievable. So this is a landmark victory to the regulation reform. Under the new law, swimming pools in apartment complexes and resorts in Cyprus are classified as Type 3, which means they no longer need this commercial swimming pool license. They just need to be registered with the local authority so they're aware the pool exists, and they can have random testing of that swimming pool. One of the other requirements is they need to appoint a responsible person for the swimming pool. And one of the main reasons for this is because although they're going to be organising random inspection, it's expected now that the regulations are being relaxed that you comply with them. So this responsible person is there to make sure that these regulations are being complied with. But most importantly, they're personally liable if they're not. So it's a really good balance of making sure that not only are the pool laws now achievable, but still you have to follow the ones that are there. Actually, we expect the opposite, because previously a lot of the municipalities and authorities recognised that the law was unworkable. So they kind of turned that blind eye to it, with the exceptions we talked about in 2018. But now the law has been changed and is actually proportional and reasonable to pools. They're going to expect this to be complied with, especially if there's an incident in the swimming pool. You can guarantee that if somebody makes a complaint about the pool, or somebody gets sick or injured from that pool, they're going to be making sure all these checks are done to make sure the pool has been operating safely, and if not, that responsible person will be held liable for it. The committee's responsibilities under this new legislation is, firstly, they have to register the pool with the local authority. Now, there isn't actually a protocol, because the law's very new, in how to do this. So what we recommend is just to cover yourselves now, send them an email, notify them that you've got a swimming pool and that you're notifying them under this legislation. And the other thing you need to do is notify them of who is this responsible person. Now, you can't just pick somebody at random. They have to agree to this, because they do have liability for it. So I would recommend getting some form of document drafted that they sign to accept the responsibility and the terms behind that, and you submit a copy of that document with the request for registration to the authorities. Now, the most important step is making sure that the pool is compliant. So you need to organise this inspection of the swimming pool. You need to go it from top to bottom, everything from the filtration systems, the dosing systems, how records are kept, who's actually maintaining the swimming pool, to make sure that all these things are compliant, and set up ongoing testing regimes and inspection regimes to make sure that it stays compliant. The risks of non-compliance are actually quite severe. So previously, even though the law was very strict, the level of liability was fairly low. Under the new legislation, they flipped that completely. And again, it goes down with the principle of proportionality, because it's easier to achieve the requirements. If you don't have those excuses anymore, so they're going to throw the book at you. So the actual penalties are up to €10,000 for violation of the swimming pool obligations, plus daily fines for every day that it stays in violation. Now, one of the important things is, if that violation poses a severe risk to health and safety of the public, which is a pretty easy thing to do with a swimming pool, that actually becomes a criminal liability, and the responsible person can face up to 12 months in prison for that issue. These specific penalties are new in the fact of the way they're set up and the severeness of them, but there has always been penalties. But again, their application of them was very minimal. It generally wasn't enforced, other than with those hotels and with those water parks, and even then, not always. The first thing is, I say, 3 steps. First step, register the pool with a local authority. A simple email will do for now until they set up a formal process. Second, appoint that responsible person. Get that in writing, what that duties and liabilities entails. Submit that to the authorities at the same time. The third important step is to make sure that the pool is compliant with the legislation. Now, swimming pools are not as simple as a lot of people think. It's not just about chucking in chlorine and running a hoover around. There's a lot of parts of a swimming pool that need to operate correctly for it to be safe, from flow rates to filtrations to dosing systems to advanced water chemistry. So it's important to make sure that you're aware of what these requirements are, how it affects the safety of the pool users, and what the responsibilities are if things go wrong. And that's not just today. You need to set this up as an ongoing rolling program. Now, the most important thing I would say is, if any of this sounds confusing, if any of this makes you unsure, then really you should be talking to somebody who knows this inside and out. Rely on professionals, because this is no longer something you can just muddle your way through and hope for the best. This is a brand new law, and we have been expecting this to come in, so we've been making necessary preparations. But effectively, at this moment in time, we're helping our clients in this registration process and organising these inspections to demonstrate that the swimming pool is compliant. We're also assisting clients in finding that designated responsible person, which for a lot of the time, naturally, will be us as the property management company. Also, my background is I'm a certified instructor and a certified pool inspector. I actually used to organise teaching classes and certification courses for pool operators across Cyprus. And although my work schedule doesn't allow me to do that anymore, I use that knowledge and training to advise our staff and our clients on the best ways to operate the swimming pool safely. So one thing I would say is whether you're a Qualitas client now or you're not, feel free to contact us. We'd be more than willing to assist you or even just give you advice and point you in the right direction.